leaving, quitting, giving up, running away, divorcing, like you asked, do you believe in divorce? Divorce is not something you believe in. Like, I believe in love, you know. You don't believe in divorce, right? Because what you're doing is you're believing in a wrong-minded idea of separation.
Who the heck is Larry? Really? And why do you want to help people navigate their relationships and marriages and life?
Okay, so what happened is this 40-year marriage. And the 40-year marriage was really to remake me a very, very tough woman I married. Very tough, very strong. And so she was strong, she was demanding. And the reason I have a cat is because she had cats, lots of them. That's why the cat's here. This is the last cat in her empire.
You said her empire?
Yes, her empire. I'm emperor of cats.
The cat empire?
Yeah, the cat empire. So that's why the cat's here. So she died in 2019. And so for 40 years, I was being remade by her. And so my job was I had to either be horrible, miserable, and run away, the way people do in bad marriages, or I had to become a learner. And I had to learn what I didn't know. Now, what didn't I know? Well, I didn't know all kinds of things. I didn't know all kinds of things about patience, about forgiveness, about thoughtfulness, about thinking, about thought, about belief. Nothing. I just didn't know any of that because I didn't have any reason to believe. But when you have trouble, you're going to learn something. And that's really what trouble does. It just gets you to push yourself out to see, what am I and what am I in? And so that's what happened to me. I got that question I'm asking. And so what I would do is because I couldn't really think, I would just write. And I would write long notes about what's happening and what she's thinking and what I'm thinking and how she's reacting and I'm reacting. And so that's the way it went for years. And so while I'm doing that, I'm also reading, and I'm also going to seminars, and I'm also studying, and I'm also thinking about what everybody's doing, what everybody's saying, what is it about marriage. And also I learned actually from her, I learned about, so she had this built-in wisdom about why she did what she did. So she was raised by very strong parents, and what happens is the very strong parents built her into a fighter. So I had very quiet parents, very not interactive, not rejecting parents. They were just parents who were just trying to quietly live their lives. So this quiet guy comes into this world with this very strong woman, and it's not going to be a happy place. So that's what happened. I just became married to her for, well, that ended up being 40 years. And the reason why it was 40 years and the reason I didn't run away is because my subconscious was programmed that you stay married and miserable. And so that's what my parents gave me, you stay married and miserable to death, right? And so that's the idea. And because when you have an idea in your subconscious mind, you can't question it. You can't even look at it. You can't even see and ask really hard questions about it, because this thing is so built into you that you can't even look at it and think, gee, is that right? Do I really have to be that? You don't have to think, you can't think like that. And so there was no questioning ideas. And so that's what I was living in. I was living in a no questioning ideas world. And so because she was so strong, because she was so forceful, she was pushing me to do things I really wouldn't do, couldn't do, didn't want to do. And all those forceful things were causing me to think about, why am I doing this? Why do I have to live this way? And but I couldn't think a lot, because when the subconscious is built a certain way, you can't really think a lot, because the subconscious says, this is the world you can think in. Because this is your limitation. Because
it's like a program.
Yeah. So, well, that's what we call it. We call it programming. And you say it, we use that word because this is the way it has to be. And so, but when you go into a living organism, programming is really not the right word, because programming is right for television. When you say programming, we make this thing start here and end here, and this is the way it's going to be. That's programming. It's very solid, very, very dependable. You watch the movie now, you're going to watch it next month, it's going to be the same. That's programming. But you can't call your life programming because you seem to have a lot of variables. You seem to have a lot of choice. It seems to have things that are different each time. And because that's different, it doesn't feel like programming. It feels like you have free choice. But you really don't, because what happens is you get deeper and deeper and deeper into the subconscious message. And finally, when it comes down to making a choice like, okay, I'm going to not go this way. I'm not going to stay with her. I'm going to leave her. When you start making that big choice, the program really steps in and says, no, can't do it. You can't do it. And so what happens is when it's time to make the big decision, it's time to follow up and follow through, you can't do it because the program says this can't be this way. It's got to be that way. So it doesn't feel like programming. It feels like living instructions. And so that's what I call it. I call it instructions. This is the way it has to be. And this is the way it has to be because of these conditions and those conditions. And even though it's this way and that way, here's the final thing you're going to do. And so it's a set of instructions. And so, I talk to a lot of people that are raised by parents with tempers. And so what is a parent with temper? This is a parent who's living their life and getting angry and upset over like little things. And that's the format. We're angry and upset by little things. And so what's the instruction? The instruction is, here comes a little thing. Here comes a little thing you don't like. Here's the way they handle that. This is the way. This is the way. This is the way. Those are instructions. And so they're kind of like adaptive instructions because they have to do with what you're about to do, what you're about to say. So I don't like to use the word programming because programming feels like television. So it's more adaptive than that. So the job of living with this very strong, very difficult woman, what I ended up coming to is it only takes one to heal a marriage. It takes one. Why does it take one? Because in every marriage, there's a person who is a reactor and a person who's a reactor. And that's what typically marriages are. Two reactors living in. And so what I'm teaching is to become a creator. And when you're a creator, you are different than a reactor. So a reactor says, I have to react to this in a very bad way. What a creator says, I think I'm going to react to this in a different way. And so the whole idea of being a creator says, I have a choice. Okay, that's good. I have a choice. I have the ability to do what I think I can do. And so when a person becomes a creator, I talk to people right off the street who are learning about the idea between being a reactor and being a creator. And it's almost like they can't really comprehend it. Like a reactor? So what I have to say is, okay, so you're a reactor and your wife's a reactor. Here's what it looks like. You react to her, and then she reacts to you. And then you react to that reaction. Then she reacts to that reaction. And so that's what you're doing. You're living as a reactor, reacting to reactions. So what would happen if you were a creator? And that's when I'm starting to stretch this person to like a creator. So what would I create? You would create a choice. The choice, the ability to say, I think I could see this differently. And that's the phrase I use. See it differently. Because if I see this situation of reaction differently, I'm going to maybe choose I can make something different. I can create something different. I can see it differently. And so the idea of seeing it differently, that's what I'm teaching in this course. I call it the environment changer because the environment changer changes the environment of their mind. So we're living in a world where we're in bodies. We live in bodies. We think in bodies. We think we have a brain. We think we have a body. And that's what we live in. And that's all we know. The idea of a mind is weird. What is a mind? We keep confusing it with brain. It's not. We can't confuse it with brain. A mind can't be seen. It can't be photographed. It can't be drawn. There's no way to visualize a mind. So we draw a brain, right? That's our only fallback. So we're in a mind, and so we have a right mind and a wrong mind. And so the right mind is where you can actually make a choice. You can choose again. You can choose again in a right mind. In a wrong mind, you can't make a choice because the wrong mind has got all of the dark negatives that we think about, dark negatives. Like the English language has all the negative words piled into one corner. And there's like, 1,200 of them or whatever. Like worry, anxiety, fear, doubt, and for anxiousness, right? So all these things are sitting there in the negative words. So if these negative words are all there, that means that all negative ideas are all there. And so if we have a choice, then we don't have to look at it as a negative idea. We can look at it as our right-minded idea. A right-minded idea is a lot more easy, a lot more forgiving, a lot more gentle, a lot more thoughtful, a lot more willing to not push, to not shove. And so I discovered a thing, I talk about it a lot, called against energy. And what against energy is all those negative words that are all piled into the corner, all those negative words in the English language. Those are all against energy. Every single idea, from fear, sadness, worry, every word you can think of that's in that negative pile is in against energy. So that's all against energy. And so when you think about against energy, that's part of my way of looking at it. If I'm in a difficult situation, what's the first thing I go to? Against energy. And all the words that are piled in that pile in the corner are all against energy. And if I want to choose to see it differently, I've got to choose from my right mind. And in my right mind is all the words that you would suspect were there. And kindness, forgiveness, thoughtfulness, patience, belief, slow, casual, welcoming, all the words, all the, the thousands of words are in that word. Relax, right? Calm. They're all there, right? So what are you doing? You're choosing from your right mind. And so the nice thing about this world is it's very forgiving, because if you're in your right mind, it is forgiving. You can see everything in your right mind. You can make a choice in your right mind. And when you're making a choice in your right mind, you're not going to be following the instructions of your subconscious mind. And that's really what everybody's got to do. Somehow, somebody's got to learn a way to choose for the right side, for the right mind, where instead of choosing from the wrong mind, choosing from against energy, their thoughts are right-minded ideas. So that's what they're working. And everybody's working on it some way, somehow, trying to get there somehow. A book, meditations, mindfulness.
Whatever
Right. All those ideas.
The hack is, right?
Yes.
People love hacks.
Yes.
But I think life is more than just hacks. Hacks is like a stepping stone, but you can't just live through hacks, right? It's just like a fad. But I mean, I didn't know that she passed.
Yes. She died in 2019 of cancer. And
wow.
Part of that was, one of the things that creates disease is the words in that pile I'm talking about, that wrong-minded pile. All those words create disease. And, why are there thousands of diseases? Because there's thousands of words. And you can grip onto any word. And the word you grip on, like she gripped onto anger. And that's because she was born in anger. She was born by two angry people, right? So it makes sense. If you're born into two angry people, anger is going to be your theme. And so what is anger going to produce? It's going to produce some kind of disease. And so what does anger often connect it to? It's often connected with a disease like cancer, the famous C word. The C word.
Yeah.
And so
it reminds me of I don't know if you ever seen Batman, if you ever seen the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yes.
Do you remember the last one? Bane. He says, "You merely adapted to the dark. I was born in the dark."
You adapted.
So, yeah, and you get what you focus on. I always tell people that, like, it's so simple, but it's so complex at the same time, because it's like you manifest your life every day, but you're subconscious to it, you're unaware to it, because you're not practicing the right minded, like you were saying, you're not practicing the right minded mindfulness techniques, hacks, whatever you want to call it, on a daily basis that gets you to snap out of it. It gets you to snap out of it and look at it and decide to choose, decide what you want to do, and take yourself out of that reaction zone. I did want to ask you though, you said you felt like you were stuck for 27 years. You were in a marriage and you felt miserable in your marriage. What would you tell somebody that's in a similar position that doesn't know what to do? They may want to leave. And is there like a breaking point, like a line that you want to cross or needs to be crossed? And when is it okay to just call it quits and don't feel like a failure of your marriage?
So let's talk about two people. Let's talk about pinballs and environment changers. So there's a lot of ways to become an environment changer. To become an environment changer, you could do all kinds of paths, right? I happen to call my course environment changer, but that's not because it's a thing to do, right? That's just my way. But if somebody's in trouble, what's the first thing you got to see? You got to see that this is a place where I'm going to change. Why am I going to change? Because I'm in pain. That's where all the learning happens. You know, picture really happy people. Do they really learn anything? No, they don't really learn anything. Unhappy people, struggling people, they learn things. They learn things and they know things because it really gets in when they're really hurting. So the first thing a really hurting person has to realize is this situation is my pain provider. My pain provider means that I've got a pain provider in my life. And why do I have a pain provider in my life? So I can learn something brand new. I am not going to learn something brand new when I'm content and happy and satisfied. That's not going to happen. It doesn't happen ever. So people learn when they're in pain and when they're in difficulty, and it doesn't matter what the pain is. Don't focus on what the pain is. Just look at, this is a painful situation. I have a pain provider that says, you're here because you're supposed to be here to learn. So that's the purpose. This is like your classroom. This is your classroom. This is your place to learn. So once they're there, their job is to say, okay, every day I got to make a right-minded choice or a wrong-minded choice. Every day, every moment, every minute, I get to make a right-minded or a wrong-minded choice. And let's get clear on the right-minded choice and the wrong-minded choice. The right-minded choice is every word in the English language that's good, that's positive, right? What's in the wrong-minded choice? Every word in the English language that's negative, right? So that's really simple. It is the right pile and the wrong pile, right? That's what I'm doing. Because what are the pile? It's a pile of ideas. That's all there is. There's just ideas. There's not things. There's just ideas. So because there's all ideas, I need to think of my right-minded pile and my wrong-minded pile. And so if my wrong-minded pile is going to take me somewhere, and by the way, the wrong-minded pile is connected to a story that I like to tell, not a story, it's an analogy. Okay, this is my wife's cat. Okay, you want to hear him sing? Okay, I'm going to put him down. So the job we have is the right-minded pile or wrong-minded pile, and we have to make the choice, and we get to choose again, all the time, over and over again. You get to choose again, and so like it's when do you get to call it quits? You get to call it quits when you finally are able to make a decision. When you can finally make a decision, that's when you're quitting. So can you imagine the world building a statue to a quitter? A big bronze statue, 40 feet tall. It's a quitter. And there's his name out there for her name. She quit when she couldn't take it anymore, and that's what it says. And so people come over to see the statue, to follow the statute. That'll never happen. What is that? A quitter is a wrong-minded idea. That's what it all is. And so they would never build a statue to a quitter, because quitting is what wrong-minded ideas are built on. It's built on quitting. It's built on running away. It's built on leaving. And so what happens when you stay and you have this pain provider? This person is here, his situation is here to bring you learning. And when you start to say, oh, learning, oh, geez, I don't like learning, right? Well, what do you like? Well, I like it after I learn something. I like that. So let's get to the learning part. Let's get to that now. Well, that's not the way it happens. It doesn't happen like, I learned it, I want to learn it now. So you don't get to pick when it happens. So all of life is made of the wrong-minded ideas and the right-minded ideas, and they're all going to come at various times, but you've got to vote to choose the right-minded idea, because the wrong-minded idea comes at you. And so that's why I'm telling the analogy of the rat. So in the analogy, you're a cruise ship, and you're a cruise ship, and you to give the great trips to your customers, but you have a rat on the bottom of your ship that you don't know is there. And so there's another rat, which is the second cruise ship. On the second cruise ship, there's another rat. Okay, so we've got a rat on your ship and a rat on that ship. So these rats have radios, and they're communicating with each other. And so they're talking back and forth, and they're sending against energy across the radios. And the against energy is so strong that it's pushing the ships apart. So you don't know you have a rat. You don't even have any awareness of that. So let's say you're married to a person who's on the other ship. That person doesn't know they have a rat. You don't know you have a rat. And so the rats are pushing. And what's happening? Separation. That's what's happening. So you go learn you might have a rat. So you go and you do the work of finding this rat, and you finally find it and get it off the ship. And now you're finally relieved of that rat, and now you don't have the risk that the rat could be discovered by your customers and make them crazy, right? Because if they found out that there was a rat on the ship, they would be very upset. Right? So you finally got the rat off the ship, so you're now relieved. And now that you have this relief, this second ship, which you have a relationship with, is still got a rat. The rat is still pushing. I mean, your rat is not there. There's no rat to push back. And so in the analogy, what is the rat? Well, the rat is the pain of your childhood. It's the first 10 years of your childhood, 53,000 hours of waking time that you've exposed to all the events of these people that are making these messages. So they're giving you messages for 53,000 hours. You are in no shape to go back in time, you think, and change any of it. And so you've got to deal with these messages all the time, right? So in the rat analogy, what is the rat? The rat is the pain of your childhood, and this other person on this other ship has the pain of their child, which is their rat. So when we eliminate one rat, we change a big situation. We took a rat off a ship. The other person can't take the rat off the ship, doesn't know how, doesn't even want to, right? But you did. So why does it take only one to heal a marriage? Which is what I say all the time. It takes one to heal a marriage because one person has to become a creator. One person has to get the rat off of the ship. One person has to choose from the right-minded pile of ideas. And when you choose a right-minded idea, you start to get a right-minded result. I say start to because it doesn't happen overnight. You start to have it, and you start to see it, and you start to feel the change because you're choosing right-minded ideas. But the rat, when you have a rat on your ship, in my analogy, the rat gets removed. Well, you don't know how to remove the rat, right? Because you don't know how to remove the rat. You've got a rat. So what's the rat doing? The rat is always pushing for wrong-minded ideas all the time, because that's where the against energy is. It's in the pile of all the wrong-minded ideas. So the rat keeps going down to the wrong pile of ideas and throwing out those ideas as against energy. So what happens in life? Well, I go to the theme park with my kids, and then my most undisciplined kid starts causing trouble for me and embarrassing me at the water park. And so what is happening right there? I now feel a wrong-minded idea. Where am I getting that idea? I'm getting it from my programming, from my first 10 years of messages. And I'm getting an adaptive message. Go into the wrong-minded pile. Go deal with this kid. And if let's say anger is what you were given in that pile, Anger is what you're familiar with. Anger is what you know. My kid needs to get some anger. I'm going to get some anger. I'm going to take it. I'm going to go deal with the kid. And so what happens is I go into the wrong-minded pile of ideas in my subconscious. I get it, install it into the whole system. And now my face, my voice, my body, my hands, everything's angry. It's all angry altogether. Why? Because I took a wrong-minded idea from the pile, from the rack, and now I'm just going to go make sure my kid gets crushed, right? And so what happens? I'm going to give my kid an experience at that water park right there, right? And so that's what we're going to have. We're going to have an angry parent. So let's
And the
go.
cycle-
Let's go to
begins.
let's go to a different scenario. You don't have an angry father or angry mother. You have a shutdown system, and that's what they showed you. They showed you when everything becomes conflict, you just shut down. And so that's what you're going to do. So there's the wrong pile of wrong-minded ideas. You don't communicate. You don't talk. You don't calm down. You don't do all the right-minded ideas. You go to the wrong-minded pile, and you grab those, and you take those. And what do you do? Well, like then the other example, the guy got angry because anger was in that pile. And that was the whole pile, right? That's the pile. That's what we're going to do at home. So I'm at the water park. The kid gets out of line. And what happens? I married a person with a temper. And this woman is very upset about this child behaving this way and embarrassing my parents. So I'm the husband, and I have shut down as my go-to pile. What do? She gets upset, I shut down. Why? Because that's how we do it here. That's how we do it here. We do what I always did in my family. That's like a really simple way to see, why am I doing this? Because that's the way we did it all the time. So as I'm teaching this story of what happens in your childhood is what happens in your marriage, people say, I never heard that before. I never heard it before. I never heard that what happens in your marriage can happen in what happened in your childhood can happen in your marriage. I never heard that. So nobody's thinking that way because nobody's explained it simply. But if we keep it really simple, if we go with the rat analogy, everybody's got a rat. Nobody has a way to get rid of the rat. One of the things people do is they go to therapists, and therapists don't know how to get rid of the rat, because if they did, I would have heard about it, because all the people I talk to have therapists.
No, I think what the analogy really portrays is a portrayal of our behavioral coping mechanisms that we may have learned through generational influences growing up in the environment that we didn't necessarily choose as a child, and that's all we knew as a coping mechanism, because we as children we mirror what we see. So we mirror, if our mom is mirroring and coping this temperament, then we're gonna practice that when we show up as an adult in marriages, relationships, whatever. My question to you though, do you believe in the D word, divorce? And if you do, when should we choose from the right-minded mindset to ultimately get it, especially if people are in abusive, toxic, very draining relationships, and they're choosing from a place that is good from the right-minded mindset?
So let's just think of the question. The question is, when's the time to leave? And then what we talk about the conditions. What are the conditions? Well, you're living with a woman, or you're living with a man who's abusive, physically, mentally, emotionally, etc. Can you really get anything done when you're being attacked? No, you can't. So why do people separate in bad marriages? They separate because they have to find relief. They have to find some kind of relief. So when you go in any city, you find women's shelters. Women's shelters. Why do they have women's shelters? Well, they have women's shelters because men are abusive. And what are they doing? They come out of violent homes. They come out of violent homes. They've got violent instructions. She's not safe with him. But why is she even there with this abusive guy? Because she has instructions to attract her to an abusive guy. Literally attracts her to an abusive guy. Like, what? But that doesn't make sense. This is not about sense. There's no sense being made here. This is about the instructions of the original first 10 years. So the instructions, I'm always asking about the first 10 years because I have to know what's the couple, where are they on my scale of 10 to 0? And this is called chaos to purpose. And so chaos to purpose starts at 10. You were born in a purpose home. And what puts you at a purpose home at 10? My mom and dad loved each other, and my mom and dad taught us how to have a purpose life, a life on purpose. That's what they did. So that's called the purpose home. So there's 10, 9, 8. So those numbers represent a purpose home. So as you get somewhere in there, that's like, I didn't have a perfect home, but I was a 9. I hear that a lot. So really good home. So then at 7 starts what's called the twilight zone. 7, 6, 5. 7, 6, 5 is the twilight zone because the parents don't really raise you. They don't teach you. They don't talk to you. They don't live an example of loving each other and communicating. They don't live in that. They live in the twilight zone. In the twilight zone,
That's me.
because they don't raise you, they're trying to survive. That's what they're trying to do. They're just trying to, it's just like, I got kids, but they just can't make themselves live and teach and talk and all that. So since you're raised in the twilight zone, you don't really have chaos. What you have is kind of like a drifty form of neglect, because you were really in the twilight zone kind of having to raise yourself. And so that's what the twilight zone is for. And the twilight zone is like, you're on your own now. And so we see in the twilight zone a lot of really independent people, because they had to figure out from a very young age, how do you live in this place? Well, they aren't telling me anything. I got to learn by myself. So you get all this, discovery knowledge as a twilight zone kid. So that's 7, 6, 5.
That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense now, because I never really realized that. Like, I'm the youngest of 4. My mom was trying to survive working 8, 10 hours a day. I was partially raised by my grandma, but she
Boy, that's a
left
very normal
also.
story.
And then my older siblings were older than me, so they were always playing together, doing older kid things, and I was left to fend for myself.
That's right. And so there
So
you
I'm a
are in
twilight
that
zone.
family. You're in that family all alone. So you have to raise yourself. So that's a very common story, especially with what is divorce doing? It's making single parents, right? And what do single parents do? They reach out to grandmothers and grandfathers and uncles and aunts and other families, and right, they're trying to, it takes a village to raise a child. Who said that?
Yeah, it's
People who
hard.
to people who don't have good marriages say it takes a village to raise a child, right? So when you're raised in the twilight zone, that's what you are. You're very independent. And then chaos begins at 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 0, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So what is that place? Abandonment, abuse, and neglect. And so what's happening now? Well, those are adults who are abandoning the child. Those are adults who are abusing the child. Those are adults that are neglecting the child. So those 3 start to take you lower and lower on the scale. That's why it goes 5 to 0. And so I often find in couples, I learn that a guy is a 9. He's raised at 9. He's got all these great values as a 9. He's got values of, this is why we do it here. This is how you keep your promises. This is how you do what you say you're going to do. So all the things that he has in his value system, he thinks everybody has them, right? But then he falls in love with a chaos kid. That's what it's called, chaos kid. And so this is a girl who's a 1. A 9 married to a 1. Can you imagine what happens then? a 9 married to a 1.
It sounds like you're describing my last relationship.
Okay. So, so even so, if you're a Twilight Zone kid, like if you're a 6 married to a 1, the gap is smaller because there's a little more. I can see your point, 1. I'm a 6. I can see your point. I can see why you think that way. But if you're a 9, you're like, whoa, what? This is weird. Like, why are you acting like that, right? So there's shock and appalled and all that stuff happening because you're a 9. Your gap is too big. It's really big. And so now you're shocked because you don't have right-minded ideas about this person you marry. You've got wrong-minded ideas from the pile on the wrong-minded side, right? The against energy world. You've got all those ideas governing you. And they are literally governing you. They're controlling you because you had a rat. And the rat's giving you all these ideas. And you're hearing them and going, oh, this is not the way. So leaving, quitting, giving up, running away, divorcing, like you asked, do you believe in divorce? Divorce is not something you believe in. Like, I believe in love. You don't believe in divorce, right? Because what you're doing is you're believing in a wrong-minded idea of separation. So we take divorce, throw the word away. Word's not useful. That's a legal term. So we want to take divorce and say that divorce is from the wrong-minded pile. And if I take anything from the wrong-minded pile, what's it going to create? Separation. That's what it's going to create. So it doesn't have to be called divorce. It could be called quitting. It doesn't have to be called quitting. It could be called giving up. Right? Who cares what you call it, right? So do you believe in quitting? No, I don't believe in quitting. There's never a reason to quit because there's a rat on the ship. And until you learn there's a rat on your ship, you really don't even know what your work is. What is your assignment? To get the rat off the ship. That's my first assignment. And if I don't even learn that this rat is there, if I don't learn what it is, I'm really screwed because I'm kind of like living. I'm living with the rat because I don't know I am.
What about? So what would somebody do then? Like, if you don't necessarily believe in quitting once you're whatever married, whatever, what would you tell somebody that's really struggling in an abusive, maybe like physically abusive marriage? What would you tell somebody?
So a physically abusive marriage is a place where there's danger, right? When there's physical abuse, what is that really doing? It's calling for the police to step in. Why do the police step in when you're being physically abused? Because we're a world of bodies. And we're trying to have a society where you protect bodies and they're not in danger. So why are the police involved in stepping in? Because when the police step in, what is that? That's a law enforcement system. That's a whole system of laws, right? And part of those laws say that you have to be physically safe. You can't, right? Could you imagine calling the police and say, I don't feel emotionally safe. Could you come over? Like emotionally safe? What are you talking about? Well, we only go for physical safety. We don't care about emotional safety. When your husband punches you, that's when you call us. You don't call us when he upsets you. You don't call us when he gives you wrong ideas. You call us when you get punched. That's the time to come over and get us here, right? So police don't come for emotional abuse. But what's emotional abuse? Abandonment, abuse, and neglect can be physical or it can be emotional. Abandonment, physical, emotional. Abuse, physical, emotional. Neglect, physical, emotional, right? So when the law steps in, it's physical. The body's now in trouble. And when the body's in trouble, we make a big deal about that because we love the body and we care about the body, and the body's a big deal to us because we're living inside the body. Because they say we are spirits living in bodies, right? So we don't know anything about spirit. We don't know what that is. That's like the mind. The mind, the spirit, that's weird stuff. People that are into weird stuff, they're interested in mind and spirit. But the body is what we know. That's what we like. So when we get physically in danger, that's a place where you can't even let yourself stay there because you got to get relief. Why are those houses in all these cities? These houses where women are protected. They're there because they have to have a place to physically keep the woman safe. Because most of this is men. Why? Most of the people in prisons are men, right? So, yeah, okay. So men are physical abusers, so we have to have houses to protect women. And so we just went through the women's movement through the 70s and 80s and 90s, the women's movement, right? And so the women's movement has extremes. It has extremes at the one end, extremes at the other end. And so what all that is about being against men, being against abusers, being against authoritarians, being against anybody who abandons, abuses, and neglects, being against. So what are you doing now? You're going to the against pile of against energy, all the wrong-minded ideas, to try to fix a problem, to try to get something good to happen. You can't go to the wrong-minded pile to get good ideas. There's no doing it because it's all loaded with against energy. So I'm marching for peace. Well, no, you're not. You're against something. That's why you're marching. What puts you in the march? Against energy put me in the march. I'm angry. That's why I'm in the march. I'm angry to be in the march. So I'm against energy. So no matter what you do, you either still got the wrong-minded pile of ideas or the right-minded pile. And so that's really what we're all looking for. And so there's a thing called mindfulness. And mindfulness is a legitimate thing that's taught. And it's got books written about it. And so what is mindfulness about? Mindfulness is about seeking out the right-minded ideas in the right-minded pile. That's what's there in mindfulness. And so everybody's looking to be in the whole right-minded ideas. Like there's a book back here called The Untethered Soul, right? So the untethered soul, what is that? That's a right-minded idea. That's the right-minded pile, right? So you read Michael Singer's book, and what you're going to learn is you're going to learn about right-minded ideas. And that's how you're going to start to think. You start to admire those. But remember, when you open the Untethered Soul, it's going to tell you about the rat. Okay, that's one of many books. There's another book here called Letting Go, right? And letting go is about right-minded ideas. So there's all these books about the right-minded ideas. But if the rat is on your ship, if the rat is always getting you to chase against energy, you could read one of those books and you still won't get it. You still won't get what the book's trying to say. Why don't you understand what the book's trying to say? Because the rat is still here. The rat is still on the ship. This rat is still communicating with you, and now you can't hear the book. You can't read the book because the rat is twisting your idea. So when I'm talking about the rat, what I'm talking about is what's been written about for centuries in the Eastern writings, which are thousands of years old, and that's the ego. So everybody knows about the ego, and nothing good has ever been written about the ego that's been good. Nothing. And so the ego is what we're talking about. When we're talking about the rat on the ship, we're talking about the ego. So what is the ego? The ego is the idea of separation. That's what it is. It's an idea of separation. And so when we think about the ego, what are you? You are a person with right-minded ideas who has attached to you, intimately attached to you, joined to you, the ego. So the ego and you are sitting together, and you can't even separate the ego from yourself. And why can't you? Because you can't get to the right-minded ideas long enough. You can't be around the right-minded ideas long enough. And because you can't be around them long enough, you can't stay away from the ego because it's there. It's there.
Yeah. What if like they're two tens on that scale? They're both right-minded people and they just don't want to be together anyway.
Okay, so what you got there is two people who have 210 ideas, so 210 value systems. And why don't they want to be together? Because she falls in love with somebody else, which is not really much of it's not really a 10 idea. Because you're raising a 10, you're raising a 10 value system. Loyalty, commitment, sacrifice, service,
let's
caring.
just say they just want to do it just to do it. Like,
no, there is no just wanting to do it. There's always a motivator. There's always a motivator, always running it.
There's
right?
always a motivator.
Right? But here's a demonstration
see other
for you.
people. They want to see other people.
So I've had people in my course for years. Remember, this is one person. They're married to somebody else. And that one person gives me their score. And so they're a 10 married to a 1, a 10 married to a 0, an 8 married to a 6, and a 9 married to a 2, right? They're always separated. What have I never seen? I've never seen a guy or a girl, because I have a men's course and a women's course, I have never seen a guy or a girl from a high place on the scale married to a person from a low place on the scale. It's never happened. 15 years I've been doing this. 15 years I've been getting those scores from 10 to 0. And I've never had, oh, I think I'm a 10 and my husband, he's a 9. I've never had that. Why have I never heard that? Ever. Because it never happens that they feel enough pain to call me. Because if they're calling me, they're calling the guy that it only takes one to heal a marriage. That's why they're calling me. But why are they not calling me? Because they don't have that kind of pain. They don't have that kind of struggle. Because they're in similar value systems that are so complementary, they can go to a little marriage seminar and fix it. Right? The ones that are calling me are the 9s married to a 0, or the 8s married to a 2. The big separation, that's who talks to me. But the people
So
that are high on the scale,
you don't think like 2 high value scales could end up separating?
They could, but they probably can get some help fairly easily.
Yeah.
They can get some marriage counseling. You know, one of the problems with marriage counseling is the marriage counselor ends up taking a favorite. And once they take the favorite, the other person feels ganged up on. So that's why
Well,
the marriage counselors
what are your thoughts
struggle.
on marriage in general?
So what's marriage? If we go back centuries, marriage is a legal agreement.
Piece of paper.
No, it's not a piece of paper. It's a symbol of how societies work together, right? And so we have this thing where we have to get people together to form families, and we need some kind of legal structure for that. You know, why are lawyers everywhere? Because we have to have a legal structure, right? So what is marriage? Marriage is a legal structure to operate in. So what's the courthouse? What's the bailiff? What are all the things in the court system for? They're all for law. What are we doing in law? We're trying to hold ourselves together. What's against energy doing? It's trying to blow us apart. Well, okay, so against energy is the enemy. Yeah, but where's the enemy? The energy is the ego. The energy is the rat. And how are we going to fight the rat? You can't fight the ego. Because if you fight the ego, you're in against energy. You're going to the pile of wrong ideas, and you're trying to say, hey, in these wrong ideas, can I destroy the rat? No, you cannot. That's where the rat lives. That's the rat's power center. Against energy is the power center. So why go there to do something about the rat? You can't do
Is there a right-minded rat?
No, there's no right-minded rat. There's no right-minded. So
What
remember,
lives
what the
there?
ego is.
The
Think of the
right-minded
ego.
cuddly bear?
The ego is not a thing. It's not a physical structure. Okay, the ego is not a physical structure. The ego is an idea. That's all it is. It's an idea, and it's an idea of separation. So since the whole idea is separation, when you go near that idea, you're going to be in separation. You're going to be moving towards separation, looking for separation, searching for separation, because you're in against energy. So when you think about it this way, it's very simple. The whole job is very simple. My job as a human being in the body is I've got to find the right-minded pile of ideas. That's what I've got to get to. And while I do that, I'm going with my rat, against energy, to the right-minded pile of ideas. And so what am I doing in the right-minded pile of ideas? Well, I'm starting to feel hope that I can do something about the rat. I can start to do this with the ego. I can undo the ego. I can start to move the ego away from me. And because I can move the ego away from me, I start to feel some relief in my life as a person apart from the ego. And that's what we're all trying to do then. We're all trying to find a way to do that. So I have a course that's doing that. So the course, the Environment Changer course, is a course on right-minded ideas. And so that's why, like, religious people will get into the course. And religious people, like, the ideas are all over the place. Because with religion is a whole mix of right-minded ideas and wrong-minded ideas. That's what makes religion so rejectable, for people that are rejecting religion, because they have wrong-minded ideas and right-minded ideas, and they're all together in religion, right? So
Yeah.
why do people reject religion? They do it because you're looking at right-minded, wrong-minded ideas together, and they're in religion. So when you're interwound with the ego, you really can't see a right-minded idea very well. You got to find some way to start to separate the ego from yourself long enough to start to really join to right-minded ideas. And there's all kinds of ways to do that. There's so many books. Like, you go on Amazon looking at self-help books. Oh my goodness, it will bury you.
It's endless.
But
So what would you tell two people that are 10 values? They have detached egos. They're coming from the right-minded. No rat. Maybe they had rats. Maybe they're dealing with the rats. I think they got rid of the infestation. That they want to reignite the spark that they once had in the beginning of their honeymoon phase or relationship, but they've gotten caught up with family life, having kids, the day-to-day grind, and they just want to spend more time with each other, present, and live life like how they were in the beginning. But now they have kids, family, whatever, they're caught up.
So why do they in marriage, the world of marriage, they talk about date night? Why is it called a date night? Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to go back to the time when they were single and separate, and they were trying to be attracted to each other. And they use the word date night a lot. Why are they saying that over and over again? Let's have a date. Let's have a date night, they say. Like, what is that? Well, the time when we were young and single and separate, and we were starting to get together, and how exciting that was. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to create the feeling of love. And they're doing it with a thing called date night. Well, that's going back to the beginning to try to recreate the feeling of the beginning. But you can't really go back to the beginning to recreate what was there. What's happening here, you're a different age, you have different circumstances, you have different opinions, but what's really keeping you together is what's also blowing you apart. You both have egos like this, and you both are like this. So what's your job? Your job is, can I detach from the ego so I can love you? So what happened in my 27 years of marriage hell? What was I doing? I was discovering the rat. And as I finally discovered the rat and started to work to separate myself from the rat, when the rat was separate enough from me, I fell in love with myself. And when I fell in love with myself, I could love my wife. But when you are like this with the rat, when you're like this with the ego, where's love? Well, it's an idea, but you can't keep it because you're going to be in against energy, like right away. And so what is this? This is about, I need to separate myself from the ego is the job. That's the job we have on earth. The job we have on earth is to separate ourselves from the ego. And so we actually don't want to. We don't know about it. We don't know how. And we can't find a teacher. But the teachers are everywhere. They are literally everywhere. The teachers are everywhere. When the student is ready, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. What will the teacher be? The teacher will be a book. The teacher will be a person. The teacher will be a donkey. Who cares what the teacher is, right? The teacher's going to appear, right? Somehow you're going to learn. And all you have to do is to think with yourself, your right-minded self. You have to think, I need help. And when you're desperate and you say, I need an answer, I need somebody to help me, I need somebody here, I need somebody to talk to me. And when you get enough emotional power behind that request, the teacher will appear. But if you're just like deaking around the edges, if you're just trying, let me try and get a teacher over here, if you don't have a real burning emotional cry for that teacher, you're not going to get the teacher.
Conviction, yeah.
Yes, because you got to be sure.
You can't just do it like a one-off thing. You have to.
That's right.
really follow your gut and intuition and have that conviction behind it.
So when the teacher appears, and Thomas, you obviously had the teacher appear for you, otherwise you wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. Well, Larry, thank you for coming on. I feel like you're doing good for people who may feel lost in their long-term committed relationships. Um, I did have one more question before we play this game, and I'd be curious to hear what you have to say. What about people that are maybe not married, but they believe in polygamy? Do you know polygamy?
Is that I don't have one partner, I have 5 partners?
Yeah, what about those people that it's not they're not really married, but they're they really believe in polygamy and like I can have multiple partners, I can spread my love thin.
So they have to find people with the same value system. So what are they going to, so what's the internet for? The internet is to find people of your value system. That's what the internet's for. And the internet's like really good at that, right? Really good at finding people with a matching value system. So what do most people have? Most people have, I want one person to be loyal to me. How do we know that? Because everybody's upset by cheating. Everybody. It's like everywhere you look, people are really riled up about cheating. You're cheating on me. You're cheating on me, right? Why is that? Because everybody doesn't believe in polygamy. They do not believe in it. But there are some people in a little corner somewhere far off in the internet, you're going to find people who believe in polygamy. And so what do you need? You need to find that person who believes in polygamy, because most people do not. Most people want one person to give them love and loyalty. And that's why you can't find polygamy people all over the place.
Yeah, I agree. Or it's like a because I even experienced some of that in my last relationship, where it's like you may try it out for a bit just to see how it feels, but
well,
really,
that's experimenters. That's experimenters. They're like on the fringe of polygamy. I'm talking about serious polygamists. You know, like
yeah,
multiple marriages.
like they
that's
have to.
serious,
Yeah.
determined people, like people who are living in Utah.
There's some
you know,
religions like Mormons or something.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Like that, like serious polygamists. Yeah.
Yeah.
But people who are experimenting are just they're just toying with the idea. But
I've
that's funny, is it? That's a strange form of a relationship.
Yeah.
But most people can't stand it, because most people can't stand disloyalty.
No, I 100% agree, because I feel like even if you're practicing a so-called open relationship, open marriage, whatever, it's inevitable. You're inevitably gonna face some sort of jealousy, some sort of conflict based off of that, the fact that it's open, that you wouldn't normally face if it wasn't.
So I've had some people who had, they're called what I call the stayer. The stayer wants to stay in the relationship. The leaver wants to leave the relationship. So I've heard some stories about leavers who are leaving for a multiple open relationship. They want an open relationship. Why do they want an open relationship? Because something in their childhood told them that dedicated relationships are dangerous and unsafe. Open relationships have an open door. You can leave pain anytime you want.
You can
And
come,
you can
go,
leave
as you
pain
please.
anytime
Yeah.
you want. That's an idea. That's an idea that they found in the first 10 years. And so they're all of a sudden they're looking for, they started with marriage and loyalty, but now they're gravitating to open relationship. Why? Because that idea is now surfaced. It's now getting stronger. And now the idea says, you know, when you have an open relationship, you can move from one person to another person and have no consequences. You can have no pain. I want to go where there's no pain. And no pain is in an open relationship. And so that's how it happens, that person suddenly wants an open relationship. They want, really what they're asking for is, I want no pain. I want to go where there's no rat. This is what they're asking for. But I'm going to take my rat with me, but I want to go where there's no rat. I want to go where there's no pain.
Well, Larry, thank you for coming on. I'm going to start playing this game now. And the question this game has for you is, can you share something risky about a time when you felt like you were on top of the world?
So a time when you felt you were on top of the world?
Yeah, that may be risky to share.
So on top of the world, I couldn't go to married life to do that. I had to go to single life to do that. And so when I was on top of the world, I had a moment. So I was in a rock band. And so when you have a rock band, your whole life is like up and down, right? Because you have to work with other people. And it's very hard to work with other people. And so when you see musicians who hit the big time, they have found a way to work with other people, right? So in this rock band, we had all the songs we're playing, and there was, when there would be a night when the band would be just hit the right song with the right audience and the right mood, and it all came together at the same time. The mood, the audience, the song, and the performance all came together at the perfect time. That was being on top of the world. Because that's the time when you say, I never want this to end. Well, what are you, nuts? I never want this to end. What are you, a baby? No, it's going to end. This moment just came together. That's what athletes say, I'm in the zone. You can't stay in the zone. Why can't you stay in the zone? Because you're loaded with against energy. How could you stay in this little perfect moment? You can't. Because against energy is going to come and take it away from you. But you want that feeling of elation and everything is wonderful and everything is perfect and everything is working together. So that would be the moment when I was on top of the world. It was in music, but it's an elusive moment. You can't keep it. You can't bottle it up. You can't reproduce it. It just happens spontaneously, and you never know when it's going to happen. So
I think that's the beauty of life, though, right?
The beauty
every
of
moment is like that, honestly. Every moment, like, it doesn't even have to be a on top of the world moment. Like, those moments do feel like time slows down a little bit.
Yeah.
And like you could do it forever, but that's just life. Like, understanding that is just life, and that every moment you live, every day, you can choose to create those top of the world moments.
So
You
there's
choose
people.
to create more of them.
There's people who are risk takers who do high risk sports, right?
Yeah.
Who jump off a cliff with a kite, right?
Death,
Those people who are doing
defying.
this, they want the high that comes with that moment. That moment where you're really at the top of your life. And so they're chasing those moments. They're trying to recreate them. And so they're doing that, and sometimes it doesn't end well. But that's what they're doing. They're trying to get that feeling back. So for myself, what I want is I want to live a rat-free life. I'm looking for a rat-free life. Okay? And so that, to me, that's the moment I'm chasing. I'm chasing that rat-free.
You should call yourself the Rat Exterminator. That should be your new brand name. Larry Bilotta, the Rat Exterminator.
Yeah, but I don't exterminate any rats. I just help people to learn how to find the ideas to start to get them to separate from the rat.
The Rat Finder.
The rat. So that's the idea, Thomas. That's the idea.
Well, Larry, thank you for coming on again. I ask my guests the same questions at the end of every episode. And the first question is, what is your biggest regret?
The biggest regret, I think the biggest regret would be that when I started the 40-year marriage, my biggest regret is I couldn't change. I couldn't change. I couldn't learn. I couldn't accept a new idea. I was just fighting everything all the time. And I didn't know what against energy was. So I was fighting it. So my biggest regret is that I couldn't loose myself from against energy. And everywhere I looked, I was against energy everywhere. But it doesn't say that way. If you're looking to be relieved of the rat, you're looking for the right place. You're looking for right-minded ideas. You're looking to relieve yourself from the rat. And so I have had a lot of successes in doing that. And successes is like there's a lot of rewards for getting rid of the rat. A lot of rewards. But that's what everybody's looking for. They're all looking for those rewards. But it doesn't come overnight. It's a long process.
I mean, it takes courage. It takes courage for you to take that first step, to take the first step into the basement of that cruise ship of your mind, to find that rat in the lonely, dark corner with creepy, red, beady eyes staring at you.
So now that you said that, why does it take courage to go in the place with the dark basement where the rat is? Because you have to look at it. You have to see it. You have to see the rat for what it is. And that's really the thing. Like my course is always dwelling on what is the rat. And so you have to look at it, because if you don't look at it, you won't be free of it. And so that's what people don't want to do. They don't want to look at it. They don't want to look at the rat. They want to see it. They just want it to go away. Take it away without me looking. That's not going to happen. A lot of people tried. It doesn't work that way.
They call that burying your head in the sand or something.
That's right. But you're saying it takes courage to go in the bottom of the ship and look for the rat. You don't literally go in the basement and look for the rat. Remember, this is not a place. This is an idea. So right-minded ideas, wrong-minded ideas. This is all ideas. There's no things here. This is all ideas. So that's all we're working with. When we talk about the rat, we're not talking about a basement. We're not talking about a ship. We're talking about an idea. The idea of the rat is separation. So if separation is whole, well, that doesn't even sound like a bad idea. Well, it is a very bad idea. Separation, because this is separation from people, separation from God, separation from everything that you care about. That's separation. And you can't get away from the rat until you slowly start to learn how. And so that's what I'm doing. So that's where at LarryBilotta.com, that's where all my stuff is. And
go check them out.
So when people need to, if they want to dig up my stuff, they go to LarryBilotta.com.
My next question, LarryBilotta.com, is who or what has made the biggest impact in your life so far that makes you who you are?
So that'd be Marcia. Marcia's the biggest impact in my life. Why? Because she was the most painful thing that happened to me. And so I always go back to that. That's the one, we like to say a thing that made us happiest was the biggest impact. But the thing that made me the most pain was the biggest impact. Because that was 40 years of learning that I couldn't do without her. Without my pain provider, I couldn't do any of that. And so that's why she always lives in my memory, because she was the pain provider. And when she was done, she was done. And so that's what everybody's got. Everybody's got. And so when we're talking about bad marriages, we want to go to really bad marriages, which is I participate in the marriage because I call myself an abusive person to myself. I want that abusive person to come to me and bring me pain. But that's not conscious. That's subconscious. So if I want to find my way out, I really need to find my teacher. Where is my teacher? And my teacher's really the answer. I got to get a new teacher. because my ego is the wrong teacher. The ego is the problem. And I do
Well,
this.
sometimes your teacher shows up in different forms, right?
That's right. They're always going to form different forms. And so wherever your teacher is, you call the teacher to yourself. And you did it because you were sincere and you really wanted, your right mind thought was, where is my teacher? And so that when you really call out for that teacher, wherever you are in the world, you're going to find that teacher. It's not going to be long before that teacher
So,
appears.
Larry, after 40 years of a long, treacherous journey of marriage and life, and discovering, rediscovering, losing yourself, finding yourself, you're now lost, and now you're on this new journey. Where are you now after all of that?
So where am I now? I think I am, so I teach a course. And when I teach a course, that's keeping me going. I love the course because everybody's learning. And when people are learning, that's just a big deal to me. I love when people are learning. And so that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me alive. The ability to teach learners who are willing to learn.
No, I love that. Yeah. I love that. My next question, Larry, is what is the biggest lesson you had to learn the hard way?
Biggest lesson I had to learn the hard way. That had to be going back to the beginning when I was just discovering there was something in here. There's something in here. That was the biggest lesson I had to discover. There's something inside me that's making me react to difficulty. Something inside me is doing it. So when I started to learn there's a voice that talks to me, that was my biggest discovery. There's a voice that talks to me? Yes, there's a voice that talks to me. If you want to learn about the voice that talks to you, Michael Singer does a great job in The Untethered Soul. That book will explain exactly how does the voice talk to you? How does it talk to you? When does it talk to you? Where is it coming from? It's all explained in The Untethered Soul. Michael Singer did a great job of that.
And those that haven't read that, I haven't read that, but I understand the concept. I think to those who haven't read that and maybe thinking about it, the voice that talks to you, it's always there. And
but it isn't you, is it? The most important point is
it's most
not
prominent
you.
when you want to beat yourself up, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when it shows up the most. And those are opportunities when you want to beat yourself up. That voice, that's not you. It's just a voice. It's a thought that comes and goes. That's a moment to stop, pause, reflect, and see it for what it is, and it just is.
So what you want is you want your new teacher to help you interpret what's happening to you, right? Just what you said right there. That's when you really ask for the teacher. I want my teachers, because this rat is not my teacher. The rat's only here to provide pain. And what's the pain provider do? The pain provider gives me enough motivation to want to learn. And just get the elements right. The pain provider provides the pain to give me enough motivation to want to learn. That's what actually makes me cry out to say, I want my teacher. And that's what anybody can do anywhere in the world. I want my teacher.
Yeah, and like we said earlier also, sometimes your teacher shows up unexpected.
Yeah.
Even without pain sometimes.
Absolutely. Pain. Absolutely. Yeah. But I'm saying if somebody who's loaded with against energy and they can't even see straight, they can't find up from down, you got to say, you got to call out, where's my teacher?
Yeah,
I need a
because
teacher.
sometimes those types of people, you have to hit the bottom to rise back up, right?
Yeah.
You have to fall down the dark, scary, wet, cold well to find that ladder again, to see the light.
Yeah, see what we borrow physical things to try to talk about ideas. That's what we're doing. We're using physical things.
It's a good
to illustrate
visualization.
ideas. Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm a very visual visual minded person. Um, but Larry, my next question is, what would you do in your life if you had all the time and all the money in the world?
Oh, time and money. Okay. So time and money, that you're saying there's no limits of time and there's no limits of money. Um, so let's start with time. There is no time. So quantum physics is teaching this. Quantum physics is saying there is no time, right? Time is something we construct in our mind. We have to create clock time. So we have a time that we can agree to do things together. And so that's what clock time is for. So what I do is I say there is no time because quantum physics says there is no time. So what happens with my childhood down here, have this experience, and now I bring it all together right here. So all together in a ball. And so my experience with my childhood trauma, my childhood upset, my childhood against energy, it all happened right here, right now. And so there is no time, so it's all right here, right now. And that helps me visualize that there is no time. So I know there's clock time. I know there's agreed, I'll see you at 8 o'clock on Tuesday, right? I know there's that time, right? But in times of visually speaking, there is no time because it's all right here, right now. So that helps me because it takes out this long line of time that we always think about. But that happened 20 years ago, right? No, it didn't. It happened right now. It's all right here in this big ball, right? Because it's right here, there is no time. So since there is no time, what is there? There's money. And so now we think about lack. I lack money. Oh, I don't have enough money, right? I had a guy tell me a joke. He said, I was going to build a building, but I ran out of inches. That's his joke. I was going to build a building, but I ran out of inches, right? So can you run out of inches? Well, you don't run out of inches. I ran out of inches. I ran out of money, right? I now think an idea, and the idea is lack. I have an idea, and what is that? We go to the wrong-minded pile, and what do we find there? Lack, scarcity, poverty. All those ideas are there, right? Lack, scarcity, and poverty. So if you had all the time in the world and all the money in the world, what would you do? Well, I already have all the time and the money. I already have it. I have it by believing I have it because I have a right-minded idea. And the right-minded idea is I have everything I need. And because I have everything I need, there's no lack because the thought of lack is not here. Because I have to have the thought of lack to have the thought of poverty, to have the thought of limitation, to have the thought of not enough, to have the thought of scarcity. All those ideas are ideas. They're all ideas from the wrong-minded pile. So what this brings us to is becoming the storyteller. And when you're the storyteller, you're telling the story you want, not the story you doubt. So what we're doing is we're dividing ideas into two things: want stories and doubt stories. Now I talked about the pile of the against energy pile, right? And all the wrong, bad English words, right? And so all the best words, right? So we have the right-minded idea, wrong-minded idea. So what we're doing is we're taking the two words, want and doubt. I have things I want, and I have things I doubt. And now I'm going to tell the story. And the story is what? I'm going to tell a story I doubt, and sometimes I'm going to tell a story I want. So I ask people, give me the split between want and doubt. Because what we're doing is we're coming up with two choices. We only have two stories. The story I want, the story I doubt. And so when do I tell the story I doubt? Well, I tell it by what I think, by what I imagine, and what I believe. And I tell it with my mouth. So that's 4 stories. I tell it what I think, I tell it what I imagine, I tell it what I believe, and I tell it with my mouth. That's 4 kinds of stories I'm telling. And only one of them is physical. The other 3 are in the mind. Right? So if I'm telling a story I believe, story I think, story I imagine, if I'm telling those as lack stories, like, oh, this never works out for me, that's a story. Oh, screw this. That's a story, right? Hell with it. That's a story, right? All those are stories, little phrases that are complete stories. They're because of complete sets of energy, of lack, poverty, loss, and all those, right? So people are not catching themselves. They're not catching themselves because they're not aware. So they're not the storyteller. They're not the storyteller that's telling 100% story that they want. They're telling 50% story I want and 50% story I doubt. 30% story I want and 80% story I doubt, right? So they're split all the time. And so when you see everyone split as a storyteller. They're all just, they can't stay in one place and tell the story they want. They can't do it because they don't even catch themselves. They're not even aware. So that's a thing I talk about all the time in my course. When you become the 100% storyteller, you're now only telling the story you want and you're telling zero doubt. But you don't do that overnight. You got to build up to that. You got to build up to
So
it.
long story short,
right?
You'd be doing what you're doing now, basically.
Yes, because there's no limits, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't tell a doubt story. I'll let myself tell a doubt story because a doubt story can take me apart and do me in. It can make me sick. It can make me poor. It can make me have rotten relationships. All this thing. So I don't want those ideas because this is all a world of ideas.
True. My last question for you, Larry, is there anything you'd like to share with the audience? Any last words that you think would resonate?
Be the 100% storyteller. Get there. Be the 100% storyteller, because if you tell the story you want and you never tell the story you doubt, your world is going to show up that way. It's going to appear. This is a very moldable place. This world we think is very solid and full of things. It's not full of things. It only looks like it's full of things. Quantum physics says these are all made of particles, right? You should be able to pass through them, right? But for some reason, we can't pass through a wall or a chair, right? But quantum physics says this is a very formable world. And what forms this world? Stories do. Stories make this world. And so when you tell a story that you want, and you keep on telling it, and you never tell yourself a story of doubt, what happens in the world? The world molds to your story. So if we think about it as physical things, every single physical thing you see anywhere exists because a storyteller made it happen. The storyteller told a story about that thing existing. So that microphone in front of you, somebody told a story about that microphone, right? Somebody told it. If it wasn't there, it wouldn't exist. If that story didn't exist in a person, it wouldn't exist. So everything exists because of a storyteller. So if you say the last piece of advice, become a 100% storyteller. That's really what your job is. Your job is to become the 100% storyteller, because that's going to turn the world around. It's going to turn the world. Your world is going to change. Not the world.
100% storyteller on the things that you want to do.
Well, yes, 100% storyteller of what you want.
That are taking from the right-minded.
Even though the rat wants you to come back, you're telling right-minded stories.
Larry, thank you so much for coming on Unwritten with Thomas Malpass. Is there anything you'd like to promote before we close out here?
So if anybody wants to get more of LarryBilotta.com, they go to LarryBilotta.com to get it.
So go to LarryBilotta.com to go check him out, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you got something out of it. Hope you can clear out that rat infestation of your mind and start living a more peaceful, compassionate life in your relationships and in life in general. And as always, everybody, stay curious, keep going. You got this. Peace.
Thanks for doing what you do, Thomas.